This weekend I had a life-changing experience. If you were friends with me on Facebook, or if you saw my extremely long Twitter thread, you will know a little bit about this story. But in addition to hanging out and relaxing this weekend, I went out to see my parents on Friday. Just popped up on my dad. He always jabs at me that I don't come by the house enough, so I decided that I was going to go make my way down there early afternoon, just spend some time with my dad and my mom. And then afterwards, I was planning up to meet with some groups of friends, and we decided to go bowling. So we get to the bowling alley, and I'm just sitting there bowling with some friends, and a buddy of mine looks up and says, "Is that so-and-so?" And in that moment, I turn around and I'm staring at this person, and I said, "Yes, that is." And so to give you some backstory on who this individual was, I used to date this young girl in middle school, and I was a complete asshole. I was the kid who expressed my feelings through jabs and insults, and sometimes I'm still kind of guilty of that, but I know it was completely ass backwards. But that's who I was as a kid. I was like a bully who didn't know he was a bully till I got older, and then I just felt really bad about who I was and my behaviors as a child. But I was a jerk. I was a complete jerk. And I remember a few years after, and I said this was junior high, middle school, junior high, 6th, 7th grade, I believe. And then this young girl ended up transferring schools. We lost touch. And I remember a few years later, a mutual friend of ours came up and told me, and I said, "Hey, I think, the way you treated her may have had some long-term effects on her as a person." And I was like, "Yeah, damn, for real?" Like, when someone tells you that, you're like, "Oh, okay." But then I just immediately started thinking, because the way she said it, it just had my brain like, damn, like, was it really that bad?
You picked on her in ways that, it's like the most damaging way to pick on a young woman in middle school or elementary school. Like, it's just all those little things you're insecure about, he was playing about.
For sure.
He was calling attention to them.
Definitely, in a joking way, in front of everybody.
Right.
And when she made that comment, I remember saying the first time, like, "Oh, yeah," and then she kind of came back like, "No, for real." And then I was just like, well, damn. So then I had this moment of feeling really, really bad. And at the time, I think MySpace was the only thing we had, or maybe Facebook had just started. I'm not too sure, but I tried to look for this young woman on social media, but I couldn't find her, because I wanted to reach out and say, well, if anything I did, behavior said, messed you up or had an impact on you, like, I apologize. That was not my intention when I was younger. Obviously, my intention was to poke fun. I'm not gonna walk away from that, but I didn't have any intention on causing long-term damage, to anyone's life.
Yeah, you were unaware of the consequences.
You
thought it was fun.
Correct.
Yeah, like, you knew it would hurt a little bit, but not
all of that.
Yeah.
So once I've heard that news, this was over 10 years ago, I have always wanted to reach out or get in contact with this young woman and apologize for my behaviors, if indeed they did have an impact. And not even if they had an impact, I just wanted to apologize, because the fact of a mutual friend is bringing it up, it had to come up in conversation at some point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to apologize for my behavior. And so fast forward back to the bowling alley, the person that my friend brought the attention to was this young woman, and I hadn't seen her in probably 15 years. So I tell my friends, I was like, I have to go speak. So I end up walking over there, I call her by her name, she turns around and is just completely surprised that it's me. We strike up a conversation for a few minutes, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna keep your time. I just wanted to say hi, like I wanted to speak. So I ended up going back to bowling, and the entire time I was bowling for the rest of the night, I just had this overwhelming feeling of just like, Justin, you should go and say something. Like, you wanted to apologize for over 10 years. Like, you had your chance. Like, are you gonna see her again? You should say something. So I'm going back and forth the entire night while we're bowling, and I'm assuming that she was gonna leave, and I was like, I'm gonna miss the opportunity. Funny enough, her kids ended up bowling right next to us in the lane over, so she was in our vicinity for the rest of the night. We ended up finishing bowling, and I just walked straight back over to him. We pick up the conversation and just kind of catching up with life, what's happened over the past 15 years. And we're talking, and she goes, do you remember how much of a jerk you were in middle school? And I said, yes, I do. And she goes and reveals some information that I was unaware of. at the time, and I had the opportunity in that moment. I said, it's funny that you bring this up, because I've been sitting here for the past hour and a half going back and forth of saying, should I apologize? But I was like, will she remember? Will she care? What's the point of it? Is it self-serving of me just to say apologize, to like release it off of my conscience? So I just didn't know. But I said, the fact that you're bringing this up, I do really want to tell you that I'm sorry, and I apologize for my actions and behaviors. That was never, my intention at the time when we were kids. It was all fun and games. I knew I was not being nice, but again, I wasn't thinking long term on what I was saying and doing could have a long term effect on her. So I take that opportunity to truly apologize, and we talk a little bit more. The night wraps up, and I remember calling my best friend on the way home, because again, some of the information that she shared that I won't share here, was really deep, and in that moment, it was revealed to me that my actions were a part of somebody else's trauma, and that is a horrible.
They amplified.
Yes, it amplified the trauma that they were experiencing in their childhood, and there's no good way at all to receive that information. To know that your behaviors have been associated with someone's trauma, and they vividly remember it 15 years later. And I felt horrible. So I called my best friend on the way home. It's like 1 something in the morning, and I'm emotional on the phone telling him all this information, because they didn't really know how deep the story went while we were at the bowling alley. And all my best friend says, like, man, that's heavy. So it's like I'm getting teary-eyed and driving home. I was like, man, you just don't understand how horrible that feels. And so I got home and ended up going to sleep. And the next morning, I wake up to a DM from this lady, and she goes on and saying, "Hey, it was good, running into you. I just want to say thank you again for apologizing. I feel like a big weight has been lifted from my shoulders that I didn't even know was there." And just in that moment, it was like, here this woman was carrying a trauma or a pain that she didn't even know was there. And just by me saying I'm sorry, by apologizing for the actions as a child, it was allowed her to release something that has been bogging her down in some way, shape, or form. And it just really was a powerful experience. And I left the whole thing, and I shared with a few friends, and I put it on the Facebook post. I just encourage any of us, if you have someone that you weren't particularly kind to, and you need to reconcile some things, you never know how far an I'm sorry can go. In this case, it's been over 15 years, and it's something I've wanted to apologize for over 10 years. But I had made peace with it internally, because I just assumed that I would never, see this young woman again. And to be able to have that opportunity and receive that message was just so unbelievably powerful. And as someone who is a speaker, that's my profession, and I know the power of words and the impact they can have, but it was just such a healthy reminder to make us realize the power of our words and our actions. Is you just never know how you can impact someone's life, how positively or how negatively. I like to believe that I leave a positive impact on everyone I meet, but in this particular case, I left a negative impact on someone, and that negativity has been carried along with them for over 15 years, and that is a really shitty reality to have to live with, and even worse for them to have to live with. And so I'm grateful, extremely grateful, that I had the opportunity to see this young woman and to express my sincere apologies and the gratitude I have to be able to be on the other side of it. And it's just like, man, it really just had my whole world change, trip for a smooth 24 hours. And I'm still not saying oh yeah, I'm fine, but it just has me really being more and more conscious of my interactions, thoughts, and ideas when it comes to engaging with other people.